I guess we're back here. Let me see what happened on my other platforms here. Son of a bitch. I apologize for that, everybody. The OBS crashed on me, apparently. So I don't even know if I'm... Okay, yeah, I'm back on Realms. Back on... I should be back here on Rumble. Let me check Restream real quick. I don't know if I'm back on everything. Yep. Looks like I am back on everything here. So I am really sorry about that interruption, everybody. Don't know what happened. OBS, just my streaming software decided to just crash on me. This never happens. It's very rare. But anyways, where was I? So let's get back into it here. Let's see. All right. So, oh my goodness. Whew. So that's my critique of point 2 is that I do believe that there is a lot of division, and politicians have been feeding into that and feeding off of that for a long time. This is not new. This isn't anything controversial. So I don't think that strictly applies, to just what she's talking about now, So, see if I can try to check something out here. All right. But anyways, going on to point 3, collapse of trust in every major institution. Now, this is a big one. Honestly, this is a really, really big one. She says government, media, public health, corporations, banks, higher education, trust in all of them cratered over the last 20 years. Why? Scandals, corruption, hypocrisy, manipulation, and blatant incompetence across the board. When no one trusts the referee, the game becomes a brawl. Yeah, but the one thing that she doesn't touch upon here is why is the government who's responsible for the government trust in government to collapse? Who's responsible for the trust in media to collapse? Who's responsible for public health to collapse? Corporations, banks, higher education. Who are all those powerful groups that are involved in all that? I have a feeling my stream on Rumble is dead. I don't know. Oh, no, okay, here we go. Now it's working. Took a little while. But basically, the left dominated government in the bureaucracy. The left dominated... Oh, for Pete's sake, now my... Oh, you guys did that. Never mind. I saw the chat turn black for a second. I was like, come on. The left dominated academia and education. Not just higher education, academia in general. You have liberals in charge of the banks. You have liberals in charge of a lot of the corporations, especially tech corporations. You have... don't even get me started on the health with COVID and all that kind of stuff. Of course, you like the left has been wildly abusing every institution that they've been part of to push their agenda. Yeah, trust has fallen. And the thing that, again, she doesn't address is that the left is largely, largely responsible. I wouldn't say in totality, but I would say largely. So we need to call a spade here, because otherwise we're just ignoring the reality of the situation. 4, the media abandoned neutrality for tribal loyalty. Yeah, they don't pretend to be neutral anymore. They're targeting their audience, targeting businesses. Well, I don't know if the audience is targeting businesses, but their audiences that they're targeting are very specific for their pushing their ideological agenda. That's for sure. News isn't designed to inform you, it's designed to affirm your worldview and keep you locked in. Yes, that is absolutely true. They try to keep you in that bubble. They try to keep you in that tribe. You know? So that's the thing. Let's see here. I mean, and the one thing that she didn't make up, I'm sorry, the one thing that she didn't address is that a lot of times these news outlets, it's not just a matter of even being neutral or not. They're just making stuff up. There have been many, many, many reported times that publications, online magazines and newspapers, and CNN, ABC, NBC, all these news outlets, they report something and it is just false, straight up fabrication. You know, that's not, again, she doesn't quite touch on that, but she is very much spot on that one. Economic stress made people angrier and more reactive. Stagnant wages, insane house pricing, medical debt, cost of living spikes, corporate consolidation, and the destruction of the middle class created a pressure cooker. People under financial strain are more irritable, less patient, and more prone to blaming the other side. Well, but there's a reason why the other side is blamed. I mean, when you have people like AutoPen that literally made everything skyrocket in cost with inflation, and he was largely like the Biden administration or regime, whatever the fuck you want to call that disaster, they were responsible. It's not a matter of just pointing the finger and trying to place blame. You know, it's not a matter of just that. She's framing it as if, oh, people are stressed under all these conditions and they just want to blame the other side for it. Well, not quite. I mean, there is part of that, I'm sure, but the grand factor here that needs to be looked at is the fact that, yeah, those policies do have that effect. When you have gas, for example, in Colorado of all fucking places, Colorado, under $2 gas. Why in God's name can't that be replicated in, say, Michigan? Or let's say Pennsylvania? Or let's say California? You know why? Because of the policies of the leftists that control those places. With extra taxes, extra fees, extra whatever. The gas price shouldn't even be above $3 in some places. Not even close, but yet even in places like West Virginia, you still have gas at about $3. West Virginia, a super uber red state. You kidding me? So that's what I'm talking about here when I'm saying like these points. While generally she hits them on the head, there's a lot of these little nuanced things that she kind of leaves out, and she's trying to make it like, oh, people are just angry and they want like this is all manufactured outrage. I'm like, well, no, it's not all manufactured. Cultural shifts happen faster than people could process. Yes. Gender norms, family structures, technology, entertainment values, etc., changing at warp speed. But again, as she's saying, oh, some people embraced, some people panicked, some people felt erased, some people felt liberated, etc., rapid cultural change always produces backlash. Yeah, but that rapid cultural change did not happen organically. It did not happen naturally. Excuse me. I mean, if she thinks that this just happened, the gender norm thing just happened normally, the transing kids thing happened normally. No, this was predicted. Heck yeah, you can't flim flam the zim zam with me. George Zimmerman. I don't know much about George Zimmerman, to be honest. All I know that the whole thing with Trayvon Martin, we'll talk about that in a moment. I don't want to get derailed. 1 second, I'm almost done with this. So, again, while yes, when you, and I've said this myself, I've said this many times on my stream actually, when you force things down people's throats, they're not going to accept it. Forcing gay marriage on people doesn't make them accept it. Forcing abortion does not make them accept it. So when you are forcing things where the grand majority of people don't want, like Obamacare, yeah, it's you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna get backlash. But again, she's not addressing the core fact that a lot of these cultural shifts were manufactured and pushed hard by the left, and they've accelerated in their pushing this stuff, right? And they keep accelerating. They keep trying to push it harder and harder because the tide is turning against them. So, and they're getting more and more backlash because of it. Simple. So foreign adversaries exploit every crack. Well, that's absolutely true. Russia, China, Iran, and others pump disinformation to American social platforms to widen racial, political, religious, and economic divides. They don't need to defeat the U.S. militarily if the U.S. tears itself apart internally. Yeah, and that is a known strategy. What's his name? I think he's a Russian defector. He said that was the strategy. Propaganda, pushing misinformation. So absolutely yes, this one is spot on. I have no real critique of this one because it's absolutely true. The only thing I would say about that point about foreign adversaries exploiting every crack is that it's not an excuse. You know, this is the thing. If we had more honest politicians, if we had more honest media, that sort of stuff would not be possible, because the media would say, "Hey, you know what? We're giving you the truth. These platforms are not." And you could trust that. That trust erosion that we talked about earlier, that's the problem that leads to this point about foreign adversaries having inroads in creating those internal issues with the propaganda and disinformation and misinformation that they push. It's the politicians' faults. It's the media's fault, the mainstream media's fault, and it's big tech, their fault too. Because YouTube, instead of trying to silence people, pointing out reality and facts, trying to label conservatives as Russian bots, for example, like what Twitter was doing, purging conservative accounts as Russian bots, that creates that situation where now you're creating more cracks in the armor for foreign adversaries to come in and do that sort of thing. Now, let me put an asterisk on that and say, okay, there are a lot of foreigners on X today that pretend to be women, pretend to be American, they pretend to be conservatives, they pretend to be liberals, and they're like some dude in India or some dude in Pakistan or whatever, and yeah, they infiltrate our politics, or from the Philippines, like that, whatever that guy's name is, that keeps posting stuff about American politics, and he's never set foot in this country. You know. Moving on. People stop talking to each other in real life. COVID, isolation, remote work, online communities, political bubbles, all of it reduced face-to-face humanizing interactions. It's easy to hate a caricature online. It's hard for someone sitting across from you. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I don't think COVID alone, obviously, was the only culprit. I think the internet... this is the funny thing. In a way, the internet unified people more because it made it so easy to talk to someone halfway across the world. And we talked about this in the last streams that I did when I was talking about like IRC and going on IRC servers and on an IRC chat. That was amazing to me. Like no matter what part of the country or what part of the world you were in, you could communicate with people globally like that at a drop of a hat. You didn't have to pay long distance. You didn't have to, go through all these hoops. You just signed on, boom, they're all right there. That's actually a lot more unifying than you think. The problem is, it creates an environment now where since you have a screen in front of you, in a way it does isolate you from face-to-face interactions. So it's a trade-off. On one side, the world became smaller because you could communicate with anyone, anywhere, anytime. At the same time, it created this barrier in front of everybody. So there's a lot of truth to what she says about that, for sure. Loss of a unifying narrative. From World War II to the Cold War to the space race, America used to have shared goals and shared enemies. Now, no common project, no shared mission, just a lot of grievance and competing identities. When a nation stops having a we, everything becomes we versus them. Bottom line, America's division isn't random and not accidental, etc. Yeah, but okay. You know why we had a unifying message during World War II, during the Cold War, during the space race? The reason why we had a unifying message actually is because we had shared values. We had people that when they came to this country, whether they were born here generations ago or they came here on a boat or a plane and they naturalized, they embraced the we. They embraced the American message. They and the American culture, and they considered themselves American. They didn't expect that America had to transform into their home country. They came here and they gave up their language, their culture, their traditions. Instead, they assimilated, became not just assimilated, they became just part of that American, fold, that fabric. The threads of who they were intertwined with the threads of the existing America that was here. When you then have people within the United States tearing down this country, saying our founding fathers were all horrible people, our Constitution is racist, our country is garbage, everything is bad. It's like, well, yeah, of course you're not gonna be unified. And again, believe it or not, Trump actually had, in a way, a unified message, because he's talking about helping all Americans. Republicans for a long time just gave up on certain demographics. For example, he was one of the few Republican candidates that actually went to the Black communities, the Latino communities. I'm from the future. Obama is not president in my time, sir. Was Trayvon Martin American? I mean, I don't know. I assume that he was born here. I mean, there was never any issue. Nothing in the news ever came up about his status as an American. So I assume he was born here, raised here, was a citizen by birth. So that's the assumption I'm running on. You know. So, anyways, basically that's what I wanted to go over when it came to Jillian Michaels' post, because it was a very long post. I didn't want to address it in X, so I may actually clip this entire bit and tag her on it, because I would be curious to see if she would reply, because she does hit the nail on the head in every point to a degree. I think there are certain things that maybe for lack of enough character count, or the platform itself, just the medium, made it more limited for her to really dive deeper into these kind of things. Because verbally, obviously, I could just keep blathering on and on about this sort of stuff. But I do feel that there were some things that there are certain implications that she made. Inferences would be the correct word. There are certain inferences she made in her points that I feel weren't 100% accurate, even though in the grand scheme of things every point was pretty spot on for the most part. So I do think that there's a lot of validity to what she said. I just think there's more to it, and I think she glossed over a few things, and it may have been selective. It may have been intentional. It may have been unintentional. I don't entirely know. But that to me is a lot of issues with those were the issues, not a lot of issues, but those were the issues that I had with this sort of thing. But now we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna get rid of this thing here because it's time for Gilgamesh. I'm gonna try and get through this pretty quick, because I want to talk a little bit about the low birth rates, and then we're gonna call it a night, because I have a few other things I gotta take care of, so I can't stay online too much. But here we go. We were at, let's see. Let me find our spot. We had read the Ishtar and Gilgamesh and the death of Enkidu, right? We had read that. Let's see. The search for everlasting life. We hadn't read that, right? We weren't there yet. And before I read this, you guys were probably trolling a little bit about Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. Like, that whole thing was a bullshit situation. Obama really racially divided our country because of it, as did the Democrats. So that situation with Trayvon Martin and what's his name, George Zimmerman, that was a tipping point in the United States. I think that was very bad for us, and it was bad for us because of people like Obama and the Democrats using that. That's where Black Lives Matter came from. It came from that bullshit. It started with that. Because this kid was going around in a hoodie, like doing whatever he was doing in these neighborhoods. Now, I don't remember all the details anymore, because this was many years ago. But obviously, the court case turned out the way it did with George Zimmerman. And I don't have much commentary on that sort of thing. What's the problem? What problem? There is a problem. What's the problem? Cat drinking beer? Why is that a problem? But anyways, yeah, for me to do some more serious commentary on that, I'd have to just kind of refresh my memory on a few things about the trial and everything. I'm not interested in talking about it too deeply during this stream. We could probably revisit that. But I have a lot of issues with what happened back then because of that, and I think it was a bad situation all around for everybody involved. I don't think it was a good situation for anybody, especially Trayvon Martin. He's dead. Zimmerman, his life is pretty much, I don't think he has much of a life beyond what happened then. Our whole country got divided and basically destroyed thanks to BLM because of this bullshit and Obama and the Democrats. It's just a bad situation all around. I don't like it, and that's kind of my thought on that. Sandy Hook. All I know about Sandy Hook is that, obviously it was a school shooting, elementary school. I've never seen any evidence that it was faked. Any strong evidence, at least. I mean, I've heard conspiracy theories like that from, I've heard that Alex Jones was saying that it was fake. My bigger issue when it comes to school shootings isn't really if it's false flags or not like that. I mean, the biggest issue that I take with a lot of these school shootings, assuming they're legit. We'll talk about the Michelle Obama's Frankenweenie in a moment. Whenever any sort of thing like that happens, the biggest issue with any shooting is that my philosophy is I take it at face value, and my problem is when politicians, the media, and etc., people use that. They use that as they use the corpses of people as a pedestal to stand on for their political machinations. I don't like that. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. And even if it is a false flag, or even if it is something like that, because some of these things could have been prevented at the very minimum, I still think it's very gross. I think it's disgusting the way these things are used, and the fact that people play politics with it when this stuff is avoidable. It's completely avoidable. School shootings, avoidable. I'm willing to bet money on that. So that's my take on any school shooting in general. I've spoken more deeply about this in other streams too. So maybe one day we could talk a little bit more about that. But that's kind of like my quick 2 cents on that. Serious commentary on Michelle Obama having a Frankenweenie. Well, I have not seen evidence beyond a shadow of a doubt of it. I have seen photos, videos, and do you guys remember Mad TV? Miss Swan from Mad TV, where her whole shtick was if they, someone would steal, like a thief broke into her house or into her nail salon and whatever, and they would ask her to describe the person, and every time her own description was, he looked like a man. That's all I can say, is that she is not very feminine. Let's just put it that way. The raccoons that broke into the liquor store? I don't know anything about raccoons breaking into a liquor store, but hell,